Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Apocalypse Movies and the Fandalorian Club, our little Star Wars review show on this corner of the galaxy. My name is Jake Berlin, and I'm joined, as always, with Mr. Brian Avalosino. Brian, it's Hump Day. It's Wednesday. How you doing today?
Freaking freezing here down in the Bay Area. It is like 50 degrees.
Cold up
And
here.
I'm not having it.
Northern California as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, doing fine. Just, it's weird seeing rain. Not used to it. Nice. But it's freaking cold. So
It's been cold. It's definitely been cold. The past couple days, the first time I've been able to see my breath, which is really nice. And yeah, we got some rain yesterday. We were supposed to get some today, but it's actually a little sunnier today, which is nice.
We got the rain today.
We got a lot of it yesterday. It was dumping pretty heavily yesterday. But no, so I mean, look, we're all good here. California's been good so far, and we are here to continue our conversation with Andor. We are on to episode 9. I love having more than like 6 episodes to talk about. It feels like an actual television show. Like, not that the others don't feel like a television show, but having the 12 episode run just feels like an old school television show. So I really, really do enjoy it. And the story's getting real meaty. Some things have been happening. Very exciting stuff's been going on. We got a fantastic episode today, titled "Nobody's Listening," which is a great kind of connection to what this episode is all about, but also a great callback to Rogue One. There was a line in Rogue One, "Nobody's listening," or they're listening now, I think is what they say in Rogue One. But Brian, quick thoughts here before we dive into some specifics. What did you think about episode 9 of Andor?
It's great. It's been one long movie, and it's just so good. It's just so good. Like, it's so dark too. Like, it is arguably the least hopeful.
This is the bleakest Star Wars has ever been.
Yes. I mean, I know the general theme of Star Wars always has like a little bit of hope. This show doesn't seem to have that much. Like, it's dark, and I kind of dig it because it just is so different, and the characters are always so serious. There's like no lighthearted really that much. So it's a big change of pace, and I'm kind of digging it pretty hard, not gonna lie.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we've both been on record basically saying that this is our favorite thing in Star Wars in quite a while. I think especially since like Disney's gotten a hold of it, as far as the television and movie side of it, not comics, books, include all that stuff for a moment. It's giving us a different perspective. I think we talked about it either last week or the week before, but we've always had this certain perception of the Empire, right? And I've seen a lot of people use the whole, there are these really quirky, mustachy, twirly villains who kind of come off, because we're always seeing like the higher ups, right? We're always seeing the kind of guys who are in charge who aren't really in the trenches. But now we're seeing the people who are kind of in the trenches, like they're not necessarily holding the weapons, but the ISB is the group of the Empire that really get their hands dirty. Like, they are the aggressors in most of the situations. And I think it was Bix that said this episode. She had that response of like, "Oh, you're ISB." Like, she had that one line of basically saying, "Oh, you're ISB," and it, like, for those people who don't recognize what the ISB is, making sure they know, like, oh, these people mean business. Like, they are the real deal. They're not the people who are just sitting behind a dashboard or on a conference table making decisions. They are the people who legit get things done. And not just to that, but we're also seeing them like do incredibly, you mentioned it, dark, bleak, aggressive, like just brutal things in multiple different facets. A lot of the stuff in the prison, obviously, but stuff outside the prison, obviously the torture with Bix was very hard to watch. I don't know if you struggle with that. Just that the whole idea of going through what she just went through and thinking about that, like trying to imagine and put myself in her situation. It's understandable as to why she would give things up like she did after going through what she just went through. You can't get mad at someone for giving up things after experiencing what she just experienced. So, yeah, man, it's like you never really want to watch dark things because they always put you in like this very strange headspace, right? You experience things that you don't want to experience. You kind of watch things that you don't want to see on screen, but at the same time, it makes for an incredibly complex and powerful show with incredibly well done characters. The story is so tight knit that it feels like, you keep mentioning it. It just feels like a film. It feels like it's done on an epic scale. And it's hard to watch dark things, but like this is something we needed. It's weird to say because when we talk about palate cleansers, right? We always talk about like the lighthearted, fun, more kind of like wondrous things. But when it comes to Star Wars lately, this is a great palate cleanser away from like the fan service, bright, happy day, old school Star Wars stuff. They're like, okay, we need to give you this. We've never given you this. Let's give you this. It's a breath of fresh air, really, because we've never experienced Star Wars like this before. It's really fun to watch each week.
Yeah, I dig it. The characters are so well done in this show. So well done. There's like not a single one that you're just like, yeah, I could do without that character. Like there's,
I mean, I can do without Cyril, but that guy's just a douchebag. Let's be honest.
yeah, but even Cyril is like, I mean, he's not the level of a hatred of a Joffrey, but it's a character that you find yourself hating because the actor's doing such a good job portraying that
stalker
role. Yeah, like he with Cyril, it's just like that, like annoying, just like not wannabe, but I mean, I guess kind of wannabe.
He's a
like,
poser. He's a poser.
Yeah, like he's just that.
Or not a poser. He's a fanboy. Put it that way. He's a fanboy.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, so he's just that good. Like, this is one of the first times where I'm not like, I like the bad guy because they're just so bad, but like I don't like what they're doing. Like, you know, it's like Thrawn. You're like, I just love Thrawn because he's just a great villain. But like Deidre is just like, you're just like, damn, she is ruthless. And you're like, she's a great villain, but I'm not rooting for her. Like she's playing this villain so well, but I'm not sitting there like, yeah, go bad guys. Like she's
Denise Goff. Denise Goff is excelling at playing this character. She is doing such a fantastic job at. So we've talked about leading up to this episode about like how much we're enjoying the character of Deidre and seeing that side of things from the Empire. We talked last week how we've never really seen in live action a strong female like executive Imperial member be in the forefront, and man is she showing up. Like she is putting, and this week specifically, like I think we've experienced her to a great length the 8 previous episodes, but this almost felt like it was her coming out party. Like we got to really see her dive into what this character really is and how like vicious and brutal and just absolutely destructive that this character can be if she's given the opportunity to do so. Like when she was talking to Bix, like that stuff is.
Go ahead. Finish. No.
Go ahead.
I cut you.
I lost my train of thought while you were talking. So
sorry. I was just gonna say she might be one of the most ruthless Star Wars villains we've seen in a while. Like
as far as Imperials go, yes.
Like I mean, I'm struggling. Like the way she is playing her, how she's just like in her face and stuff like that, and the way she talks to her, or just anyone, and just like she's so precise in everything. Like it's like
She's the
it's
definition of what an imperial officer looks like.
yeah,
When
she's
like
like
when I try to explain the Empire, or if you're to explain the Empire to someone who has no idea what Star Wars is, which is so crazy to think about because there's probably no one out there that actually does that. But and you try to say like they're the bad guys, they're this, this, and this, and this. Like Deidre is a perfect example
yeah,
because she's not like this jokey type of villain, and she doesn't like we haven't seen her make mistakes anyway, but she is so crossing T's, dotting I's, checking every corner, checking behind every building, like all that type of stuff. She's not making mistakes right now. And she's what the Empire is kind of. It's funny because the Empire has always been like a joke, right? It's always been they've always
yeah,
been ruthless. Like they've always been like very powerful. They have the manpower, they have the weapons, etc. But they always seem to make mistakes, or the just obviously the stormtroopers they can't shoot, etc. She is what the Empire should strive to be. Every single person, like she has the drive, she has the motive. She's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She clearly is full-blooded Empire, and if every Imperial member was like her, there's no way they ever would have lost. No way they ever would have lost because she is, without a doubt, the most tight-knit Imperial member that we've seen in a long time, like a long time.
yeah. I mean, she is the type of character that makes the Empire actually feel like a threat. Like it was like,
Mhm.
I mean, even when Tarkin like blows up Alderaan, you're like, oh no, like the people of Alderaan, like you're just like, oh, that's bad. But like you're still just kind of like, okay, you're continuing with the story. But like she makes you feel like you're like they're just like this ruthless, horrible, like
Yeah.
yeah, it's there's no like lightheartedness of oh the Empire, like they're oh the stupid stormtroopers always missing. Like there's none of that. It's like no, they're efficient, they are brutal, and there's a reason they held a chokehold on the galaxy for X amount of years. Like it's
Basically 30 years. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of needed in a way to establish like how bad the Empire was. Like if you were watching this and like you weren't casual, you were maybe like casual, you're just kind of like, oh, the Empire, like they're the bad guys. But now you're actually seeing like, yeah, they are bad guys. Like they're not doing good things. Like I think the thing that made me like realize just how ruthless she is like when they said they captured that pilot and whatever, she's like just kill him and throw him the
Yep.
ship in the ship and throw him out there and make it. I was like,
Yep.
oh my god, like
Oh yeah. That's why I
there
was
was
mentioning how ruthless the ISB is. Like they seem like they're the ones who are doing the dirtiest of the dirty work.
yeah, it was just like holy crap, like you've never heard like Star Wars just be like kill him, throw him in his ship, toss him into the galaxy, and they'll find him and blah blah blah. It was just like, oh damn, like it's why I love it because it's just like it gives you that sense of like this is why it was so desperate and dire for there to be a rebellion to like stand up against these people because it was not comfortable living under their reign clearly now like seeing this. So it's I know we a lot of times harp like get out of this era, but like this is a needed type of thing to show like how bad it was and why there needed to be this rule. If they were all like this with a Death Star, no one would ever have stood a chance.
No,
Like
never. Mm-mm.
it's crazy to even think about. So it's nice to see like this certain sector of just ruthless people that are just the cause of why it was so important to have a rebellion. Because you just, oh, they're the tyrannical government. Like, of course, there's going to be rebellion. No, they are needed.
They're legit just killing people for and putting people in prison for not 6 months but 6 years, and just legit putting a chokehold on the entire galaxy, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I mean, killing the pilot, throwing him into the cockpit and just tossing back out there. And you have the stuff that scared me. The stuff about the prison, them just wiping out a whole entire floor of people. Like, it's just like, oh my God. Like, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. Like, hearing these things, and it just makes them seem that much more deadly when you go and like look back at some of this old movies or TV and stuff like that. So
No, I agree with you.
I think it's brilliant.
I agree with you. I think it was a perfect. They're the perfect foil for this type of story when it comes to Andor, or just in general to be a part of the storyline. Because, like, to an extent, at this moment, anyway, outside of Cyril, in a few moments here and there, they haven't really come into contact with Andor. And what is happening over there?
I'm trying to put my charger in, and I knocked over the freaking lamp. There, now we're good. Unless you want to talk by yourself for a while.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I mean, okay. I'm happy talking about myself, but you know,
okay.
They're a perfect foil for this type of story. And they haven't come into contact with Andor directly. You know, Cyril has a couple times. He's ran into him a couple times, but we're seeing. I mean, we've mentioned them, talked about it enough, but it's a cool perspective to see from their side of things. And we know that all of it's going to come back together at some point, whether that's this season, next season. It almost like it's a terrible way of explaining the ISB, but they kind of just feel like the ultimate space cops. Whereas they're basically in charge of every planet, and they have people delegated to each planet and sector, quadrant, whatever. And those people are in charge of those areas. And if something happens, they report back. It's very detective, New York City type of cop thing, just in space. And it's a terrible way of explaining it, but space cops is a really good way to explain to someone who may have no idea what we're talking about. They're just really good at their jobs. They're just clearly really, really good at their jobs.
It's funny because I tend to think, like, if they did like a show like this, where it's like these people have a grip over like Lothal, where they had like that rebellion with Cham and stuff like that. That would be something that like I would totally watch if it was something like this, because it's like it gives you a reason to see like why the Cham had resorted in violence and stuff like that type thing, because that you hear in the books. And it's something you hear a lot of, like from like the books and the comics, like how bad they were. Oh yes, what am I saying? Lothal? Yeah, Ryloth. Thank you, Andy. But
well, so I thought you meant Lothal, and I totally looked over the Cham thing because Rebels is obviously Lothal.
Yeah,
and then Cham. Yeah.
Sorry. I meant Ryloth.
I should have caught that as well. My bad.
No, you're fine. But just like, I mean, you see a lot of these things in the comics where they're just like so evil, or the books where they've sieged this planet and are just ruining it through like control and stuff like that. And that's kind of what's happening with Ferrix a little bit. Like they seem to be hunkering down on Ferrix and just not letting these people move an inch. And so I would like to see kind of like some type of like a show maybe that is kind of like this, where they're standing up to these type of people, but an alien species. I think it'd be kind of cool to see. But
that'd probably have to be animated because of the cost.
I know, that's the only bummer,
which sucks about it, but you know.
Like, can you imagine if it was like a Ryloth type show where it's like like them just like trying to go up against that.
I
Like
mean,
it'd
not
be
a Ryloth
dope.
type show. Give me Ryloth with
Yeah,
Sham
exactly.
Syndulla. Like that's all I need. That's literally
Yeah,
the story that you can tell.
it'd be dope. I'm digging this like gritty, dark, like political spy thriller type thing that we're getting. It's very much different with no lightsabers, no
It's not
force.
needed. It's not
Yeah,
needed.
it's
It's
dope.
the and that's another reason we can be super thankful for this show is it's showing the general public that you don't need lightsabers in Star Wars,
Yeah,
right? And like
if you have a great story.
Mandalorian did that for a long time up until we saw the Luke Skywalkers, the temples, the the Ahsokas. And I'm not against that whatsoever because he's running into certain people at certain times, and that's what the story is all about. But the Mandalorian, a lot of its good episodes were episodes where he was dealing with stuff with Mandalore or doing bounties and stuff that didn't include lightsabers. And that's what it seems like season 3 is getting back to. And that's what this show's doing a really good job of. Okay, so outside of ISB and Deidre, let's talk about Andor in the prison because this is kind of a big deal. There's some major things happening at this prison. And this is definitely the most excited I've been going into a next episode. Those last moments of this episode got me like really excited to see what's coming next because obviously it's setting up like we're about to see a full-blown prison break is essentially is
Yeah,
what's happening. And this did a much better job of setting it up than I think the Aldani stuff did. Like the episode before the Aldani break, it was good. Like it was setting it up. They were walking towards the fortress and everything, but it didn't get me like as amped up as this did because the tensions are high right now. Like things are happening, people are dying. They just lost one of their coworkers. They basically euthanized him. I saw someone use that
yeah,
reference earlier. They euthanized him and just let him die, which is a crazy thing to think about. And after trying and trying and trying, Cassian finally pushes. His name is Kino. I always forget his name. It's Andy Serkis's character Kino. He finally got Kino to explain what's going on. That there's 12, no more than 12 guards at a post or at a time. And it looks like next episode is going to be a full out brawl. I'm psyched. I'm hyped. I can't wait to see it. People are going to die. It's going to be bad. But Brian, your thoughts on everything that happened with the prison this episode? I thought it was done very, very well, especially in the stages that it was told. The tension really never really left either. You can always kind of feel like that just like motor running the entire time. How did you think about all that setup now that we're headed into the official prison break next episode?
it was so like you felt like you were almost like kind of holding your breath at times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's something so different. I mean, we're used to stormtroopers walking around with guns or people with the staffs that have electricity coming out of it. You're so to have this place where it's like there's no weapons because it's so efficient in controlling people that it creates a new level of like, oh, like you're like, this is kind of bad. And then you hear that a whole entire floor got killed because of someone finding out that they don't let them leave. They just move them to another floor. It's
Well,
like,
yeah, someone got moved to another floor and the word got out. Like, which I don't know how it got out now, if it's been happening.
well, so his
But
his prison sentence was up, and oh, I get to go home. Now, we're going to keep you. You're just going to move to a different floor. But I mean, I guess, maybe the floor change wasn't far enough from the last one, and the rumor got spread out. But like, and it's just like
but
they're
don't you think like say like 10 years ago, say this whole prison was the same thing. Everything was happening the same way. Prisoners weren't actually getting off. Don't you think someone, if they had been transferred, like their time was up, they were leaving, but they actually only got transferred. Don't you think they would have said something? Or do you think
Not
they're
with the
pulling like
amount
a
of
mind, like a Men
fear.
in Black mind wipe thing or something?
I think it's the level of fear with that floor that people probably aren't saying anything. And maybe this may or may not be a newer thing because of that switch in law. That's maybe this was like a once that like law switched in, they just started this. Um yeah,
Oh,
like
there you
Andy
go.
just
Andy
said.
just said it. Yeah.
Um but yeah, like oh yeah, we're just kill the whole entire floor. We'll just get new people. Like it's
Well,
like
and that, again, that's showing to the what we were talking about earlier with the Empire that you know to them anybody can be a prisoner. Anybody who's not Empire or part of the Empire can be a prisoner, and they're happy just killing. Let's say, what do you think? How many people are on a floor? 100 people?
yeah, I figured like about
Just
100.
I'll throw a random number out. There's probably a lot more, but just on a random number, let's say there's 100 people on the floor. They could probably easily find 100 more people to arrest for no freaking reason, just like they did Andor.
Well, and then there's that line that they drop. I don't know the exact line, but it was why hire droids when workers are cheaper?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh,
No,
because we've all
Andor
been,
said it. I think Cassian said it. He says, we're cheaper than droid labor or something like that.
yeah,
I think Cassian said it. Yeah.
basically implying that it's more expensive to buy droids or make droids than it is to just.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, look,
Mm-hmm.
he literally was standing around on the beach, and they just 6 years, and then
Fucked
it's
him.
a life. Yeah, it's a life sentence because they're not letting him leave. It's just
Yeah.
like, jeez, like it's brutal. Yeah, Andy Serkis is. When I first saw him, I was just like, okay, like here's your
Love him. I love him.
cameo person, and then you're just
Love
like,
him.
you forget how freaking good he is at everything he does, and you're just like enthralled by any time he talks, and then you just see him 12 on each floor, and you're just like, oh baby, like this is
That line, it gets you so pumped up, man. Like, because it's picking up right where it's gonna leave, where it left off, and it could take a little time to plan with some of the others' help, but it gets you hyped up for what's coming. And speaking of Andy Serkis, like most of the time, and most people only recognize him as his motion captured characters, Gollum, Caesar, Snoke, but cannot forget this dude is an incredible actor. Like, there's a reason why those characters are synonymous with movie characters throughout history. Like Gollum, maybe not the single most popular character of the Lord of the Rings franchise, but he is one of the pillars of that entire franchise because he's able to keep coming around via performance, because he was able to be pushed through by Andy Serkis. Same thing with Caesar. The reason why those three movies are as great as they are is because Andy Serkis absolutely killed it as an ape. And, we didn't get enough of Snoke, obviously, but his performance as Snoke was incredible for the time that we did see him. And when we're able to see him just as his face, we cannot forget how good this guy really is. Like the way that he is able to express himself, and in this specific role too, of, the guy who's trying to keep everyone in line while trying to serve his own sentence. But also, like, it's clear that he's thought about things a lot, but he can't do it because all he wants to do is serve his sentence. That's all he wants. But the second that he hears that that's not how it's going, game over. Like, absolute game over. I'm all for this. Andor, let's do this. It's going down. And I think pairing Diego Luna with Andy Serkis for the next episode and maybe a couple other guys is going to be awesome. I don't know if he makes it out. I would probably say not. It's hard to think that Cassian and at least like one more person is going to make it out from the characters that we've met in his group.
well, we know that one guy makes it out.
Yeah, because someone had to deep dive on Star Wars and learn that he was part of the Rogue One group in Rogue One. So, which is fine. I mean, that's fine. It's a cool connection for us to learn now. It's not like we would have learned it in the show anyway.
It's not like that guy's important at this point in our.
Yeah, he's just an extra body in the Rogue One group that goes to Scarif, which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to think of anyone past those two actually making it out of the prison. Like, I don't know, but yeah, I don't see Andy Serkis making it out. I think it's going to be maybe he sacrifices himself. I don't know, but I think the dude gets wiped out of existence next episode.
This episode's going to be fantastic. There's only 3 more left, too.
But we've had 9 already. Like,
I know, but it's so good. It's like, it's so funny.
Brian, it's basically been 3 months, which is wild to think about.
I know. It's so funny because I remember when we were at Celebration and they said, oh, Andor is going to be a total of 24 episodes. You're like, what the are they going to do for 24 episodes with this character story? Like, Andor's getting the most episodes.
Chef's kiss.
It was just like, I remember it just being like shocking. That it was like, that is more than 2 seasons of Mandalorian. Like, and you're giving it to Cassian and Andor, like, of all things. And then you see this.
Actually, Brian, 2 Andor seasons is equal to 3 Mandalorian seasons exactly. 8 episodes each.
It's just like,
think about that. That's wild.
It's mind-blowing because you're sitting here going, crap, I don't want it to end. But you've already had more episodes than a first season of Mandalorian.
We have 16 episodes of Andor left, Brian. Think of it that way.
Yeah.
15.
It's wild because it's just so good. And I say it multiple times every single Fandalorian Club, but it's literally a movie. Like, this started pretty much exactly where the last episode ended. Like, I'm pretty sure the door closed of Deidre and Bix, and then it opened.
Yeah, good call.
And then this episode literally started in that room. So, like, by the end of this, you're just going to have one ginormous movie. Like, it's so incredible.
Someone's going to do a supercut of Rogue One and Andor and make it like a, oh God, I don't even know how long that would be. That would be such a long movie. It'd be like a 20
and they're not cheap little short episodes. No. They're solid length episodes. Like,
they're solid TV. Yeah, they're solid TV. 40-45 minute long episodes.
Yeah. It's funny because my friend only watched like the first 3, and I told him, I was like, just stop at this point and wait till the whole season's done and just binge the whole thing straight. Because I'm like, at this point, you might as well. And you're just going to be like, holy shit, that was just like a really long movie. And that's how it feels. It's incredible what they're doing with the show. And it makes me very excited for like future things that I'm hoping they will do. I don't know if Acolyte is using the volume. I hope. I would love to see them do like the Acolyte kind of like this style with the practical and stuff like that.
Depends on what they're telling.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's obviously going to probably have more Force type stuff into it, but like, give me more of this ground warfare type stuff, or maybe like,
you know what the perfect story is for that, Brian?
I don't know.
It's not necessarily war, but ground type of story. Dr. Aphra.
Oh, that show.
I'm just gonna keep mentioning it over and over again until Disney hears me. That's all.
It makes no sense why they haven't done that show yet.
I'm telling you, they're waiting for Indy 5 to release until they do it. That's what I'm telling you.
But it's just, I'm blown away by this show. From what I just remember being like, sweet, an Andor show, and then hearing 24 episodes, you're like, what the fuck are they doing 24 episodes for? And then seeing what they did, it's like, God, if you were ever questioning this show and seeing what they're doing, I haven't heard someone say a bad thing about this show.
No, everything that I've read on social media, the very few reviews that I watch, which have multiple guests on them, and even some stuff that I read in like articles and stuff, just kind of picking some stuff up here and there. There hasn't really been anybody who's been anything below like, oh, it's good. Everyone seems to be, it's good to it's great to it's perfect. I haven't really seen anybody say that, it's average or, I'm not really a fan of it. I'm sure there's those people out there, which is fine. Totally fine. It's all based on perspective. But I think a lot of people who, and I'll throw ourselves in this kind of ring, but a lot of people who talk Star Wars on a regular basis, who really, really put themselves inside the Star Wars fan base, are very appreciative of this show because it's so different from what we've gotten in Star Wars before. It's very Rogue One-esque, obviously, and Rogue One Too Many is considered the best of the Disney era films. You know, it's all based on subjective, but most of the time, majority of people that I talk to have it as either number one or number two. It's one or the other. And this kind of being set in the same little vein, it adds strength to people going in and being like, oh, I'm really going to like this. Or, you know, this is different. This is unique. This isn't lightsabers. This isn't diving into lore. People who have never watched Star Wars before can watch this and have such a new perspective on it and not have to watch something prior, which I think is a huge plus for this, because it's like turning on any other spy thriller or basic cable network show without having to have a prequel before it. You turn it on and you're jumped into a brand new story that requires nothing of you. And I think that's why it has such a huge success rate right now, is because it's connected, but it's also not connected. Like the only major connection, of course, there's characters we met before, but the only major connection to anything Star Wars is Cassian. Like Mon's been in some stuff, but for very few minutes. We had Saw Gerrera, but he was in this for a very small time. Like there's things, but the only real connection is Cassian, and it's not for years down the road.
And even
so
him, you don't need to necessarily know who he is to understand this show.
No, you don't, not at all. And it's a total fresh or blank slate for people who, you know, maybe were getting tired of Star Wars, or were kind of annoyed with the direction they were going, or maybe just weren't a fan of it at all. You can go in and watch, and you can decide whether you like it or not, but it's so different. It's so unique compared to what all of the other Star Wars stuff is happening. Like, think of it this way. I don't know the exact timeline of shows that's happening, but the next 3 shows that we're getting are Mandalorian, which is very heavily involved in Star Wars lore post Return of the Jedi, Ahsoka, which is a clear sequel to Rebels, and The Acolyte, which is all Force stuff. So stuff that we've had for decades in Star Wars. Andor is a complete outlier to all of that.
Yeah.
It's just completely different to everything that is coming down the pipeline for Star Wars television. On top of, I mean, we don't know what the Star Wars movies are like, because those are pretty much like in our minds on a back burner right now. But Andor is a total outlier.
Which is fine if you're putting out stuff like this.
Yeah. Oh, Bad Batch is next. Thank you, Andy. So including the animation stuff. So Bad Batch
is it like next? Did they put out?
Yeah, it comes out this month.
Does it really?
Oh no, maybe January. It might be January.
Yeah, because I saw Mandalorian.
Sorry, Tales of the Jedi, and then so I think Bad Batch is January. I'm pretty sure it's January. Yeah. But again, like Bad Batch, that's going to connect to stuff that we've known, right? Like a very heavily connected to the Clone Wars. And that show is going to bring in characters that we've met past and future, because that's okay. That's what those shows do. But Andor set out for one thing and one thing only, to be different, and it's doing it. Yeah. It is doing it on a totally different scale, and it's enjoyable to. Honestly, like, look, we're all big Star Wars fans. Like, I love Star Wars. It's been my life for a very long time, a part of my life anyway. But it really is refreshing going in each week, not having to worry about talking about force abilities, or, you know, well, that character was actually here at this point, or, you know, contradicting a book or a comic or whatever it is. Like, I'm going in enjoying a show without having to worry about stuff on the outside. Yeah. And it really is enjoyable, because as much as I love connecting the dots, or, you know, putting string from one point to another with the Star Wars timeline, I also really like when I can sit back and not have to worry about anything but the show. Yeah. And that's what Andor is doing right now. Like, there's some small connections, of course. There's things that we're going to talk about, but I really, really love the fact that the show is on an island, and that's all I have to focus on.
I agree. 100%. It's, yeah, the connectivity to just Rogue One is
It's
so
so
nice. Yeah.
minimal to Rogue One too.
Yeah, that's
Literally Cassian and Saw.
Yeah, I mean, the only at this point right now, the only real connections would be Mon, Cassian, and Saw. That's it. I mean, that at least that I can think of right now off the top of my head, and that it's not even that like dire of a connection like that. If you didn't watch Rogue One, it doesn't really matter.
It does not matter. Yeah.
So it's awesome. I would love to see like another type of show that's just like this. Give
The
me
Acolyte's gonna be like that.
I hope so. Give me another like. I would love to see like an underground like course on lower levels like show like this type thing. I think that would be kind of cool.
I want to see a bounty hunter show is what I want to see.
Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking too, but we kind of already do have.
Andy, we get it. Melshi is part of it too. Yes, we apologize for not mentioning him again.
Melshi, okay, no casual friend gives a about.
Okay,
Melshi.
but Star Wars fans, and Andy did say it earlier. He leads troops on the ground on Scarif, not really a nobody. We understand.
No one walked out of Rogue One going, "Oh no, Melshi!" Like,
we know that he's included. We're just saying overall to the overall story, like if Melshi, if Andor didn't meet Melshi in the prison, someone else would have been in Melshi's place in Rogue One. It wouldn't have just been Melshi. So, but no, I mean, look, to what you were talking about, Brian, as far as like you hope you see something else. I think the Acolyte's going to be a big part of that. I think, it might connect a little bit to something like the High Republic and the comics, but it's not going to connect too much because you can't have the average fan wondering what the hell everything means if it's connecting to a comic book. You can't. Like it's set.
No.
No. It's going to be the thing.
There's a part of me that thinks that this show is our first dip into Darth Plagueis. Like,
and that's fine, but like it's not going to connect to a point where you have to know that. It's going to connect for the casual fan and the hardcore fan. Like it's not going to be one of those things where they say or do something and you have to know it from a previous comic book or book. They're going to say or do something that will be recognizable for the hardcore fans, but won't ultimately matter for the casual fans because the story overall is going to be mattering for them, not like that Easter egg or that little head nod or whatever it may be. I mentioned I would love to see some type of bounty hunter show. That would be great. I think that's what Boba Fett should have been. I love Boba Fett. I love the character. I always will. But that's what Boba Fett should have been. It should have been a story about the bounty hunters instead of just on Tatooine with Boba. I think eventually we will get that. I think when we're all said and done with characters like Ahsoka, which I think she'll get her one show and then probably move on from her because her story is going to be pretty much full-fledged told at that point, except for some years here and there. I think they'll start dipping their toes in some new stuff. I hope anyway. I hope that they're learning and they're taking a chance. I hope that Andor was a good push for that. I hope the Acolyte's a good push for that. I hope things like The Mandalorian Season 3 is a good push for that because it's going to be a whole new territory for that character. Mandalore, Bo-Katan, all that lore with all of those new characters and everything. So crossing our fingers, I think it's a bright future. I just don't know when it's going to happen, when that future takes place. But I do think one day we will have an opportunity to see something that isn't connected, right? And I'll keep saying it, but Dr. Aphra doesn't have to be connected. We'll see characters, but doesn't have to be connected to anything. Just saying.
I'm starting to really think that Disney's starting to like get their ish together with Star Wars. Like they clear. I feel like I take the 10 years than never getting it.
Like, I agree.
I mean,
and we've gotten some really good things in 10 years, but like, it's now time to push that like boundary of where we've been at this way. Like it needs to go this way.
I heard the report of them saying that Disney is afraid to release a movie because they're like indecisive and stuff. I'm like, good. I'm glad that they're like that because that means they're actually sitting there thinking about what the quality of what they're putting out and how important it is. People are like, oh my god, they don't know what they're doing. I'm like sitting here going, no, this is a great thing because they're sitting there not just pumping this stuff out.
Don't
to make
just
money.
give us something to give us something.
Yeah, I don't think you'll find any Star Wars fan, at least a real Star Wars fan, that wants them to just pump it out just for the sake of pumping it out. Like, no, take your time and give us a great damn story like this show, and you're gonna get a reception like this show is getting right now. So I just think this is a huge step in the right direction of what they're doing, because I mean, even with Mandalorian, there's been episodes where I'm like, all right, that was kind of like it wasn't a great episode or whatever.
They're not necessarily filler episodes, but they're like side stories.
Yeah, but it's just like this the whole entire time. Like, there is no dips and dives. It just is staying at this constant medium of just badassness. And if this is the formula, then they need to stick to this. That. Go for it.
Wait, I know the show's almost done, but badassness. It's the hashtag.
Perfect. But this show has been phenomenal, and I never expected it to be this good. Like, it's incredible.
No, man. I mean, the trailers gave off a certain vibe, but the show has lived up to everything that the show was, said to be, shown to be with trailers, interviews, etc. It's been kicking strong for 9 weeks, and it has 3 weeks left, and I have no doubt it's going to end with 3 absolute bangers. Next episode is going to be a wrap up of like this current little arc. And then we have basically a 2-part finale with episode 11 and 12, which is going to be very exciting.
They're just going to leave us on this, like, wanting more of the last episode, because you're getting a second season that you already know they're going to leave you on a like cliffhanger type.
I mean, I hope
not a cliffhanger, but
I hope it's a little bit of one, but I do hope that we kind of wrap up this story, because we know that next season there's a bunch of time jumps happening. It's very House of Dragon-y, where they're jumping a couple years every couple episodes, which I'm okay with. Like, I love the idea of it, but I do hope that maybe it's like, I don't know, the ending is him like officially signing on to be a rebel, and like he pushes forward into something. I don't know, but we'll talk about that once episode 11 comes. Brian, any final thoughts on Andor before we head out of here today?
No, other than just I'm still loving Mon's story, Vel being the cousin.
Oh, we didn't even talk about Mon Mothma at all. Let's talk about Mon Mothma really quick.
Okay.
Just for like a couple minutes here. Vel is her sister? That's kind of a big
cousin.
Deal. Cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Cousin, not sister. Sorry, cousin. Which ultimately does kind of make sense, because they both have 3-lettered names. Like, should have recognized that. Sure. But very cool little connection there, and it makes sense as to why they're both kind of involved now. They're family members, and very close family members who get called upon. One is much closer to Luthen than the other. I love that they made the choice of doing that. That's really cool. I love the fact that that's the play they did. But yeah, I mean, we didn't get a ton of Mon. We really found out is that she has a cousin involved. But just, I'm sure you're going to say the same thing, but her storyline is the best right now. Her storyline is the best right now.
Yeah. Someone in the chat said earlier that they wouldn't be surprised if she got a spinoff of like, just like her story, like leading the rebellion. Give me it. Like, if it's this, I'll eat that all day, because Genevieve O'Reilly is phenomenal.
Yeah,
as Mon Mothma. And yeah, it was dope, because oh no, is that Val? No, like I was like, oh,
Vel.
Sorry, excuse me.
Vel.
Wrong cinematic
syllable.
Universe. No, I was thinking Val.
Oh, you're thinking about the Thunderbolts. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
But yeah, no. And then her just being like, make sure you go back to Chandrila and play the spoiled little rich girl. And you're just like, damn, if she's perceived as the like spoiled little rich girl, and then what we've seen of the ruthlessness, like it's these characters.
I also love
are
this too, Brian, that they have to get a thug involved to now cover financials.
Yeah, I'm curious
which is
who
very interesting.
Mon Mothma was pissed that this person was talked to, so I'm curious.
Well, did they mention a name, right? Didn't they
Yeah, I
mention
don't
a name?
remember. Yeah, they said.
But what I'm saying is, it can't be anybody that we know, because they mentioned a
but
name that it's a random thug on Chandrilla.
Yeah, it may be an actor, a surprise actor that we
for
didn't
sure.
expect to see.
For sure,
but
for sure.
it's not a name that we've known before. So I'm curious to see, like, because this person's clearly coming, because he was like, they said that they want to come to you, and it's like, oh, okay.
I love that. I love that a high value senator is going to be dining with a Chandrillan
the mob.
Yeah. It's very poetic, right? Because it kind of, like, we've seen it plenty of times in not just film, but also in real life. Like, that's what happens is behind the scenes, thugs kind of bankroll high-end people.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the stories that we've seen a lot, or not a lot, but in recent that I can think of immediately, is Daredevil with Kingpin. How he was bankrolling half of New York City in Daredevil, and then Daredevil had to take him down. Now we're kind of on the flip side where we're rooting for this person, but she's going to be bankrolled by someone bad, which is going to be very interesting. I love that dynamic. I'm super excited to see it go down. I'm terrified.
It reminds me of Last Jedi when DJ's like showing these people fund the war, and it shows
the rebels,
the TIE fighter, and then all of a sudden you
mm-hmm.
see an X-wing. You're like, oh,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it's going to be fun. It's definitely going to be fun. As Andy says, in her own home too. He's going to be coming to her apartment. Maybe we get we get another dinner scene, which is going to be very exciting. Expect tensions to be high.
The daughter.
So, yeah. Well, we'll talk about them a little bit more once we get them. I'm sure we'll get more of them next week.
Oh yeah, they're gonna screw some things up. It's just you're just waiting for that.
Yeah, he's just as Stylen Moose says in the chat, he's a real weenie. Aaron's a real weenie.
He's the worst.
Yeah, he's an absolute a-hole. All right, well, that's gonna wrap it up. We'll talk much more on Mon Mothma next week, because it seems like her story is gonna be a big play next week.
What if it's just the whole episode is just a prison break? Like,
so down. So down. Give me 40 minutes of a prison break. I'm so down. I mean, that just means a lot of death, but I'm so down. That'd be very exciting.
This next episode's gonna be so good.
Yeah, and we'll be live next Wednesday talking about it right here. Time to be determined. It seems like 5 might work out pretty well for us. Get it done a little bit earlier. 5 Pacific, that is. I know we've been going a little bit later in the day, but 5 might be a solid time to look out for next week. And then also, just because you are here for Star Wars, Brian and I are talking currently about doing a Tales of the Jedi review. We're just trying to find a day, lock down a time. We've watched them. We want to talk about them. It's just about finding the time to do so. So we'll keep you guys updated on a Tales of the Jedi. Hopefully getting it out here in the next couple of days, sometime this week, which will be really fun. Oh, hello. Oh, okay. Shut the Chrome down, why don't you? But yeah, all right, guys. Well, there it is. The Fandalorian Club this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Brian, thank you as always for hanging out with me on Fando. Everyone in the chat, Gordon, Curtis, Andy, Stylen Moose, Vapion, John Pedro. We appreciate you guys. We hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Apocalypse will be back next Tuesday for Apocalypse Now, 7 o'clock Pacific, right here on this channel. So for Brian and I, we thank you again, and we'll catch you guys next time.